Look at this tomato plant. Leaves curling, color draining out of them like someone pulled a plug. A week ago, it was thriving. Now it looks like it's already given up. Here's the thing almost nobody tells you. A plant that looks dead almost never is. As long as there's a living root system underneath, that plant is not finished. It's just missing something it desperately needs, and it needs it fast. The good news? What it needs is probably already in your kitchen right now. Not fertilizer from a store. Not anything you have to buy. 5 things. 5 liquids you can make today, from stuff most people throw straight into the trash or the sink, that can start pulling a struggling plant back from the edge in a matter of days. We're going to go through all 5. What they do, how to make them, and, just as important, the mistakes that stop them from working. So before we dive into the first one, drop your USDA growing zone in the comments, or just tell me where you're watching from. I like knowing who's actually out there in the dirt with me. Let's start with something most people peel off and throw away without a second thought. 1 onion peel fertilizer. Onion peels. The dry, papery brown skins that come off before the onion ever hits the cutting board. Most people toss them without thinking twice. That's a mistake, and here's why. Those skins are loaded with potassium, plus smaller amounts of calcium, magnesium, and a plant compound called quercetin, the same antioxidant that shows up in red grapes and berries. In a garden bed, quercetin appears to support a plant's resilience against stress and some fungal pressure, though I want to be upfront. Most of the direct evidence for that comes from lab and food science research, not large-scale garden trials. So think of it as a reasonable bonus, not a guaranteed fix. The potassium, though, is well established, and it's the part that actually helps a stressed plant recover. Potassium plays a central role in flowering, fruiting, and how well a plant moves water through its tissue. Here's how to use it. Save your dry onion skins in a jar. A good handful is enough. Cover them with room temperature water and let them sit for 24 to 48 hours, covered, out of direct sun. You'll know it's ready when the water turns the color of weak tea, sometimes deeper amber if you left it the full 2 days. Strain out the skins and pour the liquid directly at the base of the plant, not on the leaves. The mistake most people make? They skip the water step entirely and just bury the dry skins straight into the soil, expecting quick results. That works eventually, but eventually can mean weeks, because the nutrients are still locked inside the dry fiber. Soaking them pulls those minerals out into a form roots can actually use right away. Realistically, applied once or twice a week, you can expect to see some improvement in stem strength and new leaf color within about a week. Not overnight, but noticeably faster than composting the skins would ever manage. Onion peel tea feeds the plant, but the next method doesn't feed the plant at all. It feeds something underground that most gardeners never think about. 2. Fermented rice water. Think about the cloudy water left over after rinsing rice, right before it goes into the pot. Most of us pour it straight down the drain. That water carries starches, a bit of iron and zinc, and trace B vitamins. Mildly useful on its own, even fresh. But leave it out, covered, at room temperature for 3 to 5 days, and something more interesting happens. The water turns faintly sour, not spoiled, fermented. That smell means naturally occurring bacteria and wild yeasts have moved in and multiplied. This general idea, using beneficial microbial cultures to support soil life, has real roots in agricultural science going back decades, and it's genuinely practiced by farmers in a number of countries. I won't pretend fermented rice water is identical to a lab-formulated microbial inoculant, but the underlying principle, feeding soil microbes so they multiply and support root health, is sound and reasonably well understood. Here's the key distinction. Rice water doesn't feed the plant directly the way onion peel tea does. It feeds the community of microorganisms living around the roots, which in turn helps the plant access nutrients already in the soil. Different job, different timeline. To use it, let the rinse water ferment for 3 to 5 days until it smells faintly sour, like the start of sourdough starter. Then dilute it, roughly 1 part fermented rice water to 10 parts plain water. This part matters. Skip the dilution, and the acidity can be harsh enough to stress tender roots, especially on young seedlings. The most common mistake is using it fresh, straight from rinsing the rice and wondering why nothing happens. Fresh rice water is mild. It's the fermentation that does the real work. If your rice water doesn't smell sour, it's not ready. Applied weekly at the correct dilution, you're not looking for dramatic overnight change here. You're building long-term soil health that pays off over the whole season. Rice water rebuilds the soil's support system. But a plant that's struggling today doesn't have weeks to wait for the soil to catch up. For that, you need something that acts faster. 3. Vegetable scrap fertilizer. Every kitchen has a version of this. The tomato that went soft in the crisper drawer, the wilted lettuce, the cucumber nobody got to in time. Most of it goes in the trash, or into a compost pile that won't be usable for months. There's a faster route. Soft, watery vegetable scraps, think tomatoes, peppers, leafy greens, are naturally high in nitrogen relative to their fiber content. Nitrogen is very often the nutrient home gardens run short on first, and it's the one most directly tied to leafy, vigorous growth. To make the liquid version, chop the scraps, pack them into a bucket, cover with water and weigh them down so they stay submerged. A plate works fine. Cover loosely and let it sit for about 2 weeks. Bacteria in the water break the plant material down and release the nitrogen into the liquid, a process that happens considerably faster in water than it would in a dry compost pile. You'll know it's ready by the smell. Earthy, strong, a little sour. That's normal, not a sign it's gone bad. Strain it, then dilute heavily, about 1 part scrap liquid to 30 parts water, before applying it at the base of the plant. Now, the mistake that causes real damage, applying this undiluted or spraying it directly onto leaves. Don't do either. At full strength, this liquid is strong enough to scorch foliage and damage root hairs. It also has real potential to smell unpleasant and attract pests like fruit flies if left uncovered or applied too heavily near the house. So keep the fermenting bucket covered and away from doorways. Done correctly, diluted, applied to the root zone only, you can expect to see deeper leaf color and new growth within roughly 4 to 6 days. Nitrogen solves a hunger problem. But most struggling plants aren't missing just one thing. They're usually short on several nutrients at once, in different amounts. For that, one ingredient isn't enough. You need a full recipe. 4. The Kitchen Full Spectrum Fertilizer. This one's a combination, and each ingredient earns its place for a specific reason. Banana peels contribute potassium, again, central to flowering and fruit development. Finely crushed eggshells add calcium, which plants use to build cell walls. A calcium shortfall is a major factor behind blossom end rot in tomatoes, that sunken black patch at the base of the fruit. Used coffee grounds add a slow-release source of nitrogen and improve soil texture over time. Now, an important correction, because this is one of the most repeated myths in gardening. Used coffee grounds do not significantly acidify your soil. Fresh, unbrewed grounds are acidic, but once they've been brewed, most of that acidity washes out with the coffee itself. Used grounds typically land close to neutral. If you're adding coffee grounds hoping to lower your soil pH for acid-loving plants like blueberries, it's not a reliable method. What used grounds are genuinely good for is organic matter and slow-release nitrogen. 2 more ingredients round this out. Epsom salt, magnesium sulfate, supplies magnesium, which sits at the core of the chlorophyll molecule. When magnesium runs low, you'll often see yellowing between the leaf veins, while the veins themselves stay green. One important caution: yellowing leaves have several possible causes: nitrogen deficiency, iron deficiency, overwatering, and root stress can all produce yellowing that looks similar. Epsom salt only helps if magnesium is actually the problem. If you apply it repeatedly and see no change, the cause is probably something else, and continuing to add it can throw off your soil's nutrient balance rather than fix anything. Finally, blackstrap molasses. Not regular table molasses, the darker, more mineral-rich version. Its main job here isn't nutrition. It's feeding the microbes already in the mixture, which helps break the other ingredients down faster, so their nutrients become available sooner rather than over several slow weeks. To make it, combine crushed banana peels, crushed eggshells, used coffee grounds, a tablespoon of Epsom salt, and a tablespoon of blackstrap molasses in about a gallon of warm water. Let it steep, covered, for 3 to 5 days, stirring occasionally. The common mistake is skipping the molasses. Without it, the mixture still works. It just takes weeks instead of days, because there's nothing accelerating the breakdown of the solid ingredients. Diagnose before you treat. This blend covers a lot of ground, but it's not a cure-all for every yellow leaf you see. That covers what's sitting in a modern kitchen. But there's one more method, older than coffee, older than the modern vegetable garden itself. 5. Aged manure tea. Before synthetic fertilizer existed, this was the method. Every farm ran on manure and compost, full stop. It's still one of the most complete natural fertilizers available, and for a struggling backyard plant, it holds up well against anything sold in a bag. The setup: a shovelful of aged manure, chicken, cow, or rabbit, placed inside a porous sack. An old pillowcase or a mesh bag works fine. Tie it shut and drop it into a 5-gallon bucket of water. Over 3 to 5 days, the soluble nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and trace minerals, leach into the water while the solids stay contained in the bag. The type of manure matters. Chicken manure is the most concentrated in nitrogen and phosphorus, strong, but needs careful dilution. Cow manure is more balanced and better suited for long-term soil structure than for a fast rescue. Rabbit manure is the gentlest of the three and the safest option around young seedlings. Here's the safety part, and it matters more than anything else in this video. Manure must be aged, ideally 6 months to a year, before it ever touches your tea bucket or your soil. Fresh manure carries high ammonia levels that can burn roots within days, and it can also carry pathogens and viable weed seeds. This is especially important if you're growing food crops. Fresh or improperly aged manure near edible plants is a genuine food safety risk, not just a gardening inconvenience. When in doubt, age it longer. Once brewed, dilute the tea to the color of weak iced tea, roughly 1 part tea to 10 parts clean water, before applying it at the base of the plant. Morning or early evening application tends to work better than midday, since less nitrogen is lost before the roots can take it up. Used correctly, aged manure tea delivers a genuinely complete nutrient profile plus a boost of soil microbial life. Not an instant transformation, but steady, reliable support over the following week or two. 5 liquids: onion peel tea, fermented rice water, vegetable scrap fertilizer, the kitchen full spectrum blend, and aged manure tea. None of them cost anything beyond what was already headed for the trash. To be clear, these methods work on plants that are stressed, yellowing, wilting, or struggling. Not on plants that are truly dead, roots and all. But the line between looks dead and actually dead is a lot further out than most people assume, and a lot of plants get pulled and composted before they ever get the chance to prove that. So, which one are you trying first? Or if you've already used one of these, which one actually worked for you? Tell me in the comments. And if this saved you from tossing a plant you were about to give up on, it'll probably help someone else too. Share it with them. Happy gardening.